strengthening, sustaining, and ensuring inclusive practices. We believe every individual, regardless of abilities and disabilities, has the right to full access to quality, inclusive learning and community environments. Our community embraces diversity, supports lifelong quality inclusion, and equitable engagement for all. We are going to be recording this session. We may have already started because Julie is always 10 steps ahead of me. So you may have heard that recording announcement. Let's also just take a moment to quickly review our values at the Inclusion Collaborative. I'm not going to read each of these out loud, but I would love to give you just about 30 seconds to take a look at that. Hey, oh, that's a blurry picture. I thought it looked much nicer before I actually blew it up. But Dr. Dewan did such a wonderful job of introducing and acknowledging our Board of Trustee Vice President, Victoria Chan. Thank you so much for being here with us. And you've been such a wonderful support to the Inclusion Collaborative. If you could do a little either real wave or a little electronic hand wave, that would be wonderful so everyone can see you. Also like to take a moment to acknowledge Charmaine Warmenhoven, who actually could not be with us today. She's actually traveling. Charmaine's generous yearly donations has helped keep our Warm Line funded, as well as the support that she's provided to all of the other areas of work that we do with the Inclusion Collaborative. I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you our newest members of the IC team. Jenna Picata is our new makerspace training specialist.
If you guys are on your way to the hiking club.
Oh, I'm going to go ahead and mute. Jenna will be supporting our makerspace here at the Ritter Park space, as well as the South County Annex, and she will have an opportunity to share some updates with the makers about the makerspace in just a little bit. And I'd like to also introduce and welcome Edith Mancera de Gonzalez. She's our new DEI coordinator and leading the efforts on all of our equity work. She'll also have a chance to share a little bit later. And now we'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves in small groups. We're going to open up breakout rooms. If you can take a moment to introduce yourself to your small group, just your name, where you're from, your agency, and then in just 3 words, what does inclusion mean to you? What is inclusion to you? 3 words. And then if you could just do something fun for us in your small group and figure out what is one thing that your entire group has in common. So I don't know how you're going to go about figuring that out, but be creative. What is one thing that your group has in common? We're going to open up breakout rooms in just a moment. And I'm going to put these in the chat. Okay. Here are those questions, and here are the breakout rooms. All right, we'll have about 6 minutes to share. Have fun.
Really?
Hi, Leo. Hi, Gloria. Welcome.
Okay. So do we write it down or?
Oh, I think we can share with each other.
Oh, okay.
Your name, your agency, and in 3 words, what is inclusion to you? I'll go ahead and start. So my name is Julie Kimball, and I work in the Inclusion Collaborative. I support Sandra with all things financial and also with several of the administrative needs of our staff. And 3 words, let's see. So I'm cheating just a little. I'm not sure the word no one is 1 word or 2, but I have no one left out.
Oh, you made a sentence. Nice.
And then let's see, I'm not sure what we're all going to have in common, so we could get to that after, I guess. Let's see, Leo, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Name, Leo Mopigu, agency, Santa Clara County, SELPAS. In 3 words, what is inclusion? I wrote down we all belong. And then what is one thing your group, oh, maybe we'll get there after everyone does introductions. Maybe I'll just tag Marianne because I saw her join.
Yes, good morning. I'm Marianne Burke. I'm actually a retiree out of the Santa Clara County Office of Ed. I was over the Parent Engagement Initiative, which Jamie Coe is now the coordinator, but I was also the director of, I don't know, they had a title of categorical and special projects in those days, which ended up being the LCAPs and a whole other department. I did the charter schools, I did a lot. And I worked a lot with special ed. Since my retirement, I am back in the schools in direct support, written a few books, 13, and I'm editor of Gen Parenting, which is one of the things I collaborated with. We've written several articles about inclusion in our blog. And I'm also an intervention teacher in a local school, which I work mostly with the highest risk kids right before they are tested for special ed. And trying to work really hard with them. So it's a very big honor. I'm the PBIS evaluator for the school. So I'm very involved in all those pieces that I was doing even when I was working, but on a much lighter scale, which I love. 3 words to describe, how I look at inclusion is obviously respect, acceptance, and equity for all. And then the word that ties us all together is collaboration, because that is what the Inclusion Collaborative is all about. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll go next. My name is Gloria Lopez. I'm one of the site supervisors at our preschool that have inclusive programs for Santa Clara Unified School District. So I'm over at Agnew Elementary. So it's really exciting because this is fairly new of a program. I'm also very new to the district. So anytime I can get more experience on what that means and what it looks like in the classrooms, I'm here for it. For me, 3 words that mean inclusivity to me, I put equity as well. I actually took a class of what that looks like again in the classroom. Equity, diversity, and welcoming are my 3 words. And I believe Sung.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sung Park, and in the Inclusion Collaborative, I am the coordinator of Inclusion Education Technical Support. So that means just providing professional learning, coaching and assistance in inclusive best practices. Lately, it's been a lot of universal design for learning. In 3 words, inclusion, it means to me the attitudes for belonging.
Oh. Great. Okay, let's see. One thing our group has in common, do we like collaboration? Yeah, we're all collaborators for sure.
Who's going to share in case we have to share?
I can share, no worries. I think we can't do this work alone to do inclusion. You cannot have the pronoun I, just like with inclusion. It has to be us, it has to be all, and that we need to be able to collaborate to do our jobs.
Yes, good.
Are you sharing? Do you like boba?
Julie, is that background coming from you? I'm just
The
checking. I
Background
hear
noise, do you hear?
conversation. Yeah.
Probably so. Let me.
Okay, no worries.
I'm in, yeah.
Isn't coming in my head.
No.
Okay. We're breaking out. Oh,
Yes, I think it says, I don't know if sometimes it says, it'll give you a little warning. Yeah. Gloria, you work at Santa Clara Unified?
Yes, so I'm one of the site supervisors at Agnew Elementary. So I see our district preschool and our before and after school program. So I was telling my group that our preschool classroom, they're starting to be inclusive. So we have a sped
Yeah.
teacher in there and a general ed teacher in there. So it's
It's
exciting.
wonderful.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of work with a preschool program at Santa Clara, so it's very nice to hear that. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're just closing up in just a minute. Rooms are closing up. I hope that was enough time for you to introduce yourselves and find out that one thing you all have in common. I was going to have everybody share out. Feel free to put that in the chat, what that one thing in common you all have in your group is. And I'm going, a couple of things. I'm going to go ahead and allow for live transcription, closed caption. So let me see if that's something I can do here. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Thank you for that, Katie White. And also know that we have in the chat dropped a link for this to this presentation that you can use to follow along or reference at a later time. Okay. Share my screen one more time. Next, we'd like to talk a little bit about person first and identity first language. And when I've taken the pledge, we've all taken a pledge to use person first language, or most of us have, or at least have heard of person first language. When we use person first language, we are respecting the inherent worth, dignity, and multiple talents of all people, which includes speaking and writing respectfully and appropriately about an individual with a disability. Person or person for people first language emphasizes the person first, not the disability. So, for example, we can use phrases such as a person who, a person with, or a person who has. Some more examples would be, rather than saying an autistic boy, we would say a boy on the autism spectrum, dyslexic fifth grader with dyslexia, special needs student with varying needs, the ADHD student or the ADHD kid, a student with ADHD. One thing I do want to acknowledge and mention in this group or to this group is that just with any major activism movement, there's also usually a counter movement, and I have heard a lot from different folks, and I've done some reading about the sort of counter movement to person first language, which is identity first. And so in this slide, I've linked a couple of 3 or 4 articles and blog posts that I found to be interesting to read, and it just helped me open up my mind about the difference between the two. You can see here that I didn't write person first versus identity first. I do think it's important for us to understand and read about both. The thinking behind this counter movement is that person first language implies that the word disability or disabled is negative or it's a derogatory term. And I only bring this up because it's something that stayed in my mind as I listen to parents of children that have disabilities, and I've done some reading. It's something that sparked interest for me, and I just wanted to make sure I heard and read about both sides. So there is some very interesting reads here. Please feel free, if you have other resources or references that speak to this, to drop that in the chat. I think obviously the most important thing is that we're understanding both sides of this through the lens of individuals from the disability community. Okay, I'd now like to take a moment to introduce Amanda Dickey, Executive Director of Government Relations. She will be sharing a presentation and some information on the UPK-UTK expansion. Amanda, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will give you share rights. Let me find you, Amanda.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Here we go.
So I think this is the first time that I'm joining this group, so I'll introduce myself really quickly. I'm the Executive Director of Government Relations for the county office, and I work very closely with Dr. Dewan. And we run legislation and we work on budget asks, but we also do a lot of things beyond that, right? We do a lot of collaboration with policy, and with the various different departments and divisions of the county office. So Sandhya asked me to come here today to talk really briefly about UPK and TK. For many of you, probably the first thing that comes to your mind is, what the heck is UPK? I've been hearing that word a lot. What does that actually mean? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the state's definition of UPK is and try to dispel some myths and misunderstandings about UPK. So UPK is not a new unique program. It is not a funding stream or a new type of program that's going to be serving kids. UPK is really just an extension of the state's current mixed delivery system, with the intention of that expansion of various different programs that fall under this umbrella that you see in front of you. The intention that the expansion of these programs in tandem with each other will meet the early learning and care needs of all 3- and 4-year-old children and their families. So as you can see under this umbrella, UPK includes all existing local, state, and federal early learning, expanded learning, and childcare programs, as well as private community-based providers that offer preschool or expanded learning experiences. So this is hopefully this visual, I don't know about you, but I'm a visual learner. This visual helps to some extent kind of articulate what exactly UPK is. So let's quickly dispel some myths and misunderstandings. A lot of folks have been talking about UPK as if it is just TK expansion. It's not. UPK is an umbrella under which all state, federal, and private early learning, childcare, and extended learning programs sit. There's also a myth that the only requirement that LEAs have is to expand TK to additional 4-year-olds in this year and in the coming years. The reality is that LEAs do need to expand TK, that is true, but they also have a requirement to articulate how all 4-year-olds will have access to full-day early learning that meets the needs of parents. And they also are required, as again, because ELOP, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, sits under the UPK umbrella, part of the UPK responsibility is also to ensure that LEAs meet the ELOP requirements, which is to provide 9 or more hours of extended learning time to 50% of all unduplicated pupils. Let me back up here actually. I know I'm using a lot of acronyms. UPP means unduplicated, and essentially that means low income or foster youth or English learner. So if I'm using any terminology or acronyms that don't make sense to you, feel free to drop something in the chat or interrupt me and say, hey, Amanda, what the heck does that mean? Another myth that is important to dispel is this perception that TK will replace all other early learning and childcare programs serving 4-year-olds. The reality is that LEAs cannot possibly provide all the facilities, workforce, and hours needed to meet the needs of all parents, including those who, for instance, need weekend hours or evening hours or 12+ hours a day. LEAs just can't do that. So there is no intention for TK to replace other programs. Another myth is that expanded learning is not part of UPK. It very much is. UPK, the umbrella that you saw there, which was created in collaboration between our county office and the Department of Education. Very intentionally, UPK does include expanded learning programs because the state recognizes that expanded learning programs like the new Expanded Learning Opportunities Program does serve younger children and the same age of children that, for instance, TK or state preschool serves. Another myth is that curriculum or the professional development department is the only one who really needs to pay attention to this. The truth is that UPK implementation will touch all divisions within an LEA, or really, there's going to be an impact on everyone, whether you're an LEA, a provider, a parent, etc. You're going to have to learn some new information and potentially adapt a little bit. And then finally, there's a myth that LEAs can make decisions about UPK implementation after just having internal conversations, but the reality is that LEAs are required to create a UPK plan. And as part of that plan, there is a requirement that LEAs talk to families and to community-based providers to identify what the needs are of the community and of the families. So trying to kind of understand, perhaps you've probably heard that there's this big expansion, this big move towards UPK, which I've now explained what that means in case there was some confusion about that. And there's also this perception of, a lot of changes happening, and there have been a lot of changes in this world specifically related to UPK. There are 3 big changes, and they are distinct changes, but they are interrelated and they do impact each other. So this slide kind of identifies what those three big changes are. So TK expansion is one. This new requirement to create a UPK plan is another. And then finally, the creation of the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, or the ELOP, is the final and third big kind of new component. TK expansion being one of the critical components. This is a timeline of TK expansion where full implementation will happen by 2025-26, at which point all 4-year-olds will be eligible for TK, again, regardless of income. Now, I don't have time today to go deep into the weeds on this, but I wanted to provide for you the slide decks and the recordings that Santa Clara County Office created in partnership with the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence and the California Department of Education, along with the County Superintendents Association. And you have both here the webinar slide decks as well as the recordings of those trainings. And those trainings go pretty deep into the weeds around what UPK is, what all the considerations are, and how you should be thinking about that in the future. And then finally, I wanted to also mention, because Sandhya kind of brought up this, the particular interest of this group is around how inclusion and how children with exceptional needs are going to fit into, how the state is moving forward in expanding UPK and universal preschool. So I wanted to specifically point out that there have been quite a few legislative changes that have happened over the last couple of years, including in just the most recent budget cycle, including legislative changes that make children with exceptional needs categorically eligible for the CSVP program, which is the California State Preschool Program. The changes that make 3- and 4-year-olds with exceptional needs who are also income eligible the second priority for enrollment, which means that they're significantly bumped up when it comes to priority enrollment. Requires the California State Preschool contractors to set aside slots specifically for children with exceptional needs. Starting in this calendar year, the requirement will be setting aside 5% of slots, and then by 24-25, the requirement will be to set aside 10% of slots. So this probably sounds familiar to those of you who are familiar with the Head Start program. The state is attempting to align with the same Head Start standards of setting aside slots. As well as increasing and consolidating the children with exceptional needs adjustment factor to a pretty big bump of 2.4 for those who have contracts and are serving children with exceptional needs. And then finally, as well as all of those changes in this year's budget, there was also an additional investment in the IEEEP program, which I'm going to butcher this acronym, but it means the Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program. Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay. So there was another $250 million allocated to that program, as well as some minor changes to kind of match requirements and various other components of that program. And for those who aren't familiar with that program essentially provides funding for professional development facilities and various other one-time costs that are needed in order to modify early learning facilities in order to make them more appropriate to serve children in inclusive settings. And then finally, I wanted to mention, just as a reminder, that in the 2020 budget, there was funding provided to LEAs to offer early intervention services to 3- and 4-year-olds with exceptional needs or at risk of being identified. And it amounts to approximately $8,000 per pupil. And that in 2021, the budget made this funding permanent and made some very slight modifications to the formula. And then I also wanted to highlight, Dr. Dewan highlighted a bill that we are obviously very, very proud of, SB 692. But in addition to that, we also sponsored another piece of legislation specifically on inclusion and early learning, which is AB 2827 by Clerk Silva, which would eliminate a regulatory barrier to inclusion in early learning programs. And we're proud to say that that bill is also currently sitting on the governor's desk. So I'm going to pause now and see if there are any questions.
Feel free to put questions in the chat or raise your hand and we will sift through if you have questions. Okay, I see Andrea.
Hi, thank you. I always love it when you present this information, Amanda, because it really shows the comprehensive nature of the UPK system. But then I know when I go and I talk to my teachers, especially like people who are currently in the field as intern teachers, they tell me, so they're working as early childhood special education teachers, and they tell me categorically that the districts are telling them that 4-year-olds will be in TK without a discussion of what that means for the individual child. And my understanding is that this is intended to be a conversation about the options that are available for each child, rather than a categorical decision that's going to be made for children. So I'm not sure if there's like maybe just been confusion in the messaging that districts have gotten around the options that they have for children with disabilities. But I think that's something that I would love to raise as a concern, and maybe for a discussion about how to approach this with our district partners.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I will say too, you know, those concerns are have been shared by a number of folks that I've heard statewide. And as a result of that, there was specific language added in last year's budget that makes very clear that parent choice must be honored, that parents can choose programs other than TK for their child. So they could choose Head Start, or they could choose the state preschool program or any other program. And so that language has been very clearly laid out in the budget. However, understandably, some districts are taking the perspective of, well, if the parent shows up in my front door, then I'm going to enroll the child, right? And so I think maybe we can talk a little bit more through these various new responsibilities we have around the UPK plan and the universal preschool plan, which is also a new requirement for the LPC, which is housed by the county office in our county, to potentially work with districts around educating parents about their options.
Thank you. I see Anna Marie.
Actually, Andrea just kind of answered my question, but I just wanted to know, because when I look on the slide deck that you guys gave us the links for, this isn't on there. Can we have access to it?
Amanda, are you okay with dropping a link, or is there a?
Absolutely. I will, can I email it to you and then you can send it out to folks?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Susan.
Sorry, I was on mute. I have a question for the WARM line. So it sounds like state preschools are now accepting children with disabilities, not income-based. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we can
Yeah.
reverse when parents, because we get a lot of parents calling about preschool, and we can now give that as an option for all parents who have children with disabilities.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We can't guarantee obviously that there
Right.
will be a slot available,
Right.
because they are, I'm trying to remember where they are on the priority list. They're like 5 or 6, but they
Okay.
are now on the priority list.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Susan, I'm going to do one more scan to see if anybody else has a question, or again, feel free to put it in the chat. I think that's all. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. You do such a great job of just presenting this information and answering questions so thoroughly and so detailed. So thank you very much. Just really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me go back to my screen. And I will be sure, once Amanda sends that to me, I'll be sure to, when we send out this recording, I'll also send out a link to her presentation as well, or link it to our presentation. Okay, we want to spend a little bit of time, and then we'll take a break, spend a little time going over our Inclusion Collaborative updates for all of you. And in the next few slides, you're going to actually hear from the IC staff, because they are, we are a team, and I want to make sure that their voices are heard as well. So we will share just a few highlights on particular projects that we're doing. We'd like to give you the chance to hear our updates in a more, I guess, experiential way. So we've created some sort of experiences for you, so that you can actually kind of have more of a hands-on understanding of how we are doing some of the things, exciting work that we're doing. So if those of you who are new to this advisory board, first of all, thank you very much for joining. This is a quick overview. I'll just give it to you as a visual of some of the things the Inclusion Collaborative does, what we do in terms of services that we provide in coaching, technical assistance, and professional development. And here is a picture, hopefully you can see it, a picture of our menu of services. Our professional development opportunities really focus on belonging, inclusion, and equity. And under those umbrellas, we design training specific to sites and district needs, always keeping with evidence-based strategies. We are very excited to share with you that today is our last day for ticket purchase for in-person registration for in-person tickets to our state conference. I wanted to take a quick moment to play our promotional video. It's about a minute and a half. Very proud of it. It's very exciting. And while we only have a limited amount of in-person tickets available, we also will be selling virtual tickets as well. So it's a hybrid event. As you can see, the keynotes are listed on this slide. I'm going to share with you, I'm going to present our promotional video. One second, let me cue it up. Okay.
I love. The Inclusion Collaborative State Conference is an opportunity for people from different vantage points across the state to share problems of practice and to be inspired. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
You know, it's really looking at celebrating diversity, supporting equity, and ensuring inclusion.
You cannot operate within an equitable and inclusive environment until you first become an equitable and inclusive person.
We got amazing speakers, we got amazing people, we got good energy. You're not going to an academic conference where you're just gonna sit there and chill, or one where someone is just gonna talk to you, but rather collaborative experience around one of the most essential themes in our work.
We'll be able to look at each other and say, okay, here are the things that I know about myself, here are the things that I've learned about myself. Now, how might we support each other in our growth, and how might that growth be beneficial to all of us? When you have an inclusive space like that, it lends itself to more rich dialogue that is on both a personal and a professional level.
I'm just really excited just to be a part of this, to listen to the other speakers, to engage with, participants, and just really to submerge myself in all that this conference has to offer.
We're really engaging with who we are, why we are where we are, how this has implications on teaching and learning. How does this harm young people? How does this benefit young people? A thorough interrogation of the concept of inclusion in a way that allows us to be better at our practice.
How do we look at ways in which our synchronous in-person time together really affirms who we are, affirms where we are, but also serves as a catalyst for areas of our own growth of where we want to be.
When you can kind of develop a community that is inclusive of everyone's individual needs, when we do that, everyone in the community has the ability to thrive.
So again, today is the very last day to purchase in-person tickets, but like I said, we will have plenty of virtual tickets available, and please know that our priority is to ensure the same high quality, rich experience for both our in-person and our virtual attendees. I'd now like to pass it over to Susan Larkin, who actually founded our Warm Line staff, the Warm Line. She'll share some important data points and fun pictures of the work that the team does. Susan?
All right, so here's our flyers for the Warm Line. We serve parents, teachers, community members, anyone who calls us. You can go to the next slide. And this again explains how we serve our clients. So we answer questions, we address concerns, we provide resources for a variety of different subjects. So go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the things we often do is create social stories and visual schedules, and here are some examples of our social stories. When parents or teachers call with a specific concern, we can write a story about it to help the child, and we have stories for kids, maybe 12 months, 18 years old to 18 or 21 years old. So we have stories about foster youth, we have stories about dating, we have stories about gangs, riding the bus, as we see here, lots of stories about calming down and how to manage emotions. Go ahead. And here are our numbers. So, we were founded in 2008, and we were really hoping to get 100 people to call during the year. And as you see, we had 170. And this year, we're 9 months into the year, and we've had 3,347 calls. We have 3 people who staff the Warm Line, and that means we have about 2 calls an hour. calls or emails can last between an hour, between 15 minutes is probably the shortest, to 2 hours would probably be the longest. And you can see Yolanda and Hien, who are here on our meeting, they're here as well, and they're part of the Warmline team as well. Go ahead to the next slide. We serve children of any age. As you can see, most of our children that we serve are 3 to 5 years old, but we also get calls for 17, 18, even 21-year-old children. And we serve lots of adults, mainly parents, but we do get a lot of preschool teachers who call, and we're starting to get more and more grade school teachers who call as well. Go ahead to the next slide. And we serve lots of languages, mainly English, of course. And then this year we've had 242 initial calls in Spanish. So we can only capture the information about languages from their initial call, their first call. 32 Vietnamese. So Hien's been here for a little over a year, and we've already had at least 32 callers have called us at least once in Vietnamese. And we also, I speak Chinese, so we also serve Chinese. If someone calls with a different language, we try to find some support for them as well. JJ, who works with us, and she's here too, if we get a call that's in Korean, we often call on JJ to help. And the next, you can see the initial reason for the calls. They vary from Ages and Stages questionnaire, which is a developmental screening for children birth to 5.5. We get a lot of calls on behavior, and a lot of parenting calls, school supports calls, and lots of other calls as well. And the next slide. And we serve all school districts. This slide changes every year. So you can see this year we had a lot of calls from Alum Rock, but in previous years we've had lots of calls from San Jose Unified. We've had Campbell, a school district that calls a lot. So it seems like if one teacher calls, they pass the information on to other teachers. So for 1 year, we might get a lot of calls from one school district, and then another year we'll get more calls from another school district. And the next slide. And the types of disabilities that children have, disabilities or challenges, include behavior. That's the big one. Speech is another big one, but we serve kids, parents, and people who work with children with disabilities, of all sorts of disabilities. But of course, speech and behavior are the biggest. And the next one. All right, and Yolanda is going to tell us about how she's been working with parents who speak Spanish.
Yes, hi. Last year, the Mountain View Wisman School District reached out to us. They had a group of parents who wanted to learn more about speech. Their kids were going through assessment from the district. Some were in the process, some were already receiving services. So we had 5 parents last year, and this year we have 10 parents sign up. And so we are they want to learn more about how they can support their kids in their speech process. So this is really amazing, because for parents to have this time of the day, you know, I know they're busy and they do want to learn. One of our parents doesn't read or write, so this is the good way to get that information, and I love it because they are so ready to learn, so ready to support their kids. So we provide the information, we provide visuals, and it's really nice. I'm very happy to be able to work with them, answer questions, and we know that the IEP process could be slow, and so we are happy to really talk to them a lot more about, you know, there are different things that in the speech delay, some parents might have some selective mutism, some have problems with articulation. So there's a different information and process to work on. So I'm very happy to see that is really we're providing that support for parents. And yeah, I wanted to share that with all of you with this group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. When Yolanda was sharing, and I'm putting you on the spot, and I hope you don't mind, but when she was sharing this with me, her eyes just lit up, and it's truly amazing work. The Warm Line is a gem of the Inclusion Collaborative. Thank you for sharing that data, Susan, and thank you, Yolanda. Now I'm going to turn it over to our new DEI coordinator, Edith. She will share some updates on the work we're doing around the Ways to Equity playbook, and I think she may be guiding you through an exercise. Edith?
Hola, hello everybody. Yes, my name is Edith Mancera de Gonzalez. So I am new to the Inclusion Collaborative as well. And I have the pleasure of being able to guide districts and supporting their and schools and supporting some of their equity work. And I know some of you in here actually were contributors or participated in some way or form in being able to create this beautiful tool and guide. And I am just so honored to meet you and work with you and get engaged in this equity work. So our Ways to Equity playbook is here. There is you can see a bit.ly link that you can access it. You can also access the playbook by going into our Inclusion Collaborative website and going into Ways of Equity, and then you can access it there as well. So there's a couple of different ways that you can access the playbook. And as it was created and developed by Santa Clara County Office of Education to really focus on 3 targeted student groups, our African-American students, our students, English learners, and our students with disabilities. And the work that was done to be able to focus on these student subgroups is by looking at the California dashboard data and understanding, right, that within our data, these student groups are demonstrating really stark disparities in terms of their outcomes in school. So that's why some of the data points are focused in supporting specifically these groups. But if we go on to the next slide, Sandia. You'll be able to see as well that these are some of the frames that the Ways to Equity playbook is kind of gathered or utilizes. This idea of making sure that we are examining systems change. It's versatile and adaptable. So though we highlight and spotlight those 3 student groups, these strategies and resources and tools can really be used to adapt to any of the equity needs of any students that we have within our systems. It focuses also on making sure that we're looking at equity from a collaborative perspective and ensuring that we have shared leadership and really thinking about how we humanize that data and understanding that all of the students within our system, right, there's actually a human being that is being impacted and that we need to make sure that we are disrupting those systems that are causing that to happen for our students. And again, this idea of targeted universalism, which again, if you go to the next slide. So again, in focusing on our students, our African-American students, our students with disabilities, and our English language learners within the Ways to Equity playbook, in utilizing the targeted universalism approach, our intention is that if we really are creating systems changes and we are focusing on our students that are the most marginalized in our school community, is that everybody in our system is going to benefit. So some of the things that you see within the playbook that are highlighted in these spotlights for these students, you'll be able to, people are able to access some of the data that we're utilizing, looking at systems in the marginalization of students, the historical as well of data, and then lots of different resources and reflection questions to engage in how do we support our students and how do we create system change to disrupt those inequities that are happening. Next slide, Sandia, please. Thank you. So I know that every single one of you guys is here because in some way, shape, or form, you are also passionate about equity. So we wanted to invite you to share something about the organization that you work with and think about these questions. How is your organization, what is your organization's working definition of equity? How has your organization engaged in conversations about the meaning of equity? Who has participated in these conversations? Who has not? what are some accomplishments that you've had with your equity work? And what are some challenges that you face? So if you can take a second or a few seconds to reread those questions. And if you want to raise your hand, we would love to hear from some of you about how you're engaging in this work. You could either put it in the chat too, if you would like, but take a moment to reread these questions, and we're going to invite some of you guys to share. So when any of you are ready, you can go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourselves and share, or go ahead and put it in the chat as well. Would anybody like to share? We're all being shy on here today.
I can't see the little hands, so if you see one, please, or if you just feel free to unmute yourself.
I can share what we've been doing at San Jose State, or at least the Department of Special Education. I know this, our College of Ed has had a huge, we've had a long-standing focus on equity, but in the past, it started around the time of the pandemic. How long has it been? 3-4 years? We've kind of renewed our stance on equity, and within the Department of Special Education, we actually went back to our mission and vision statements and realized that we really hadn't called out equity in an actionable way. We were supposed to be equitable as faculty, but we didn't describe what we wanted our future teachers to do. So we revised that, and then that led us to revising our courses and recognizing that a lot of the literature in special education was written in a deficit orientation. The research is done on monolingual English speakers and so on. And so we've intentionally collected resources to supplement readings or to replace readings throughout all of the courses, and to raise the awareness of equity as an important issue. We can't just focus on those evidence-based practices, because we need to use those in an equitable manner that's responsive to children's intersectional identities. And so that's been the work that we've been doing. So and we're really proud of it.
Awesome. So kudos to you all. And I know that many of you guys, right, are engaged in some capacity and working on issues of equity. So if we go to the next slide again, in some of the work that we're doing and engaging with a playbook is really kind of starting with school districts and organizations and understanding, right, having that first initial definition as an organization. Do we have, right, that equity definition, as well as you're describing kind of, and then going on and building upon that too. One of the definitions of equity that is highlighted within the playbook is the one from the National Equity Project, which states, right, that in working on equity, we really want to make sure that each student receives what they need when they need it to be able to thrive socially and emotionally, emotionally, and academically, right? Promoting inclusion, removing that predictability of success and failure that's correlated with ethnicity, culture, race, or social economic status, and paying attention, right, to the social and historical forces, both within ourselves and then within the systems that we work with. Next slide, Sandhya. So once we kind of get into the conversation about where are you at with your definition of equity within your organization, then we have this great resource within the playbook that we call the on-ramps. And within the on-ramps, it's intended to be kind of used to help people lead the work, identifying kind of where they're at on their equity work journey, and different tools and resources on how to continue moving that work forward. forward. And there's so many great tools and resources here, but this is an idea. The intent of this is not to be made as a checklist, like check, we've done this, check, we've done this, but really to realize that there's so many different aspects of equity that we can be focusing on. There's always work that we need to be done. Where are we on the journey and how do we continue moving forward? Okay, next slide. Sandhya, thank you. So these are some of the frameworks that we're utilizing and highlighting as well within the playbook. Universal design for learning, really focusing on social emotional learning, and culturally relevant or sustaining pedagogies as well. Next slide. So what's next for us? So as we've kind of been rolling and sharing with educators regarding the playbook, everybody's like, well, do you have more? So now we are creating enhancements to further, right? There's new research coming out, new data, new tools and resources for educators. So we're working on creating now enhancements that support all the new stuff that's coming out, and to have even more resources and tools as people continue furthering their equity work. We do have our African American enhancement. We have an enhancement to focus on supporting early learning childhood education. So that one is almost done. We're almost ready with it. And then these are two more enhancements to further along the work, supporting students with disabilities and supporting students, supporting English language learners as well. Thank you. Next slide.
I think that's the last one, Edie. Oh. Yeah. Thank you so much for that wonderful update and that wonderful summary of that, all of that amazing, important work that comes out of the playbook. And I see her in here, and she had asked a question earlier. I just want to give some recognition to Anna Marie Villalobos, who had played a huge part in creating and designing and writing the original playbook, as well as these enhancements. So I don't know if you want to do a little electronic hand again.
I met her yesterday. I was super pumped, and then I see her again today. I'm like, yep, it's meant to me. We're destined to collaborate in some way.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Sung Park, who's going to share some exciting updates on the project that he's working on, which is learning acceleration systems. And let me stop sharing, Sung. I'm going to give you share rights. Just 1 second here. Okay, Sung. And I think you're on mute.
All right, thank you. So for learning acceleration, the Santa Clara County Office of Education was awarded a project grant for learning acceleration systems over the next 5 years. And this is to support learning acceleration strategies across the state in English language arts, mathematics, and English language development. Now, just to make it a little bit more interactive, I've created a little course as an example for what are some of the supports in this learning acceleration project. And you're welcome to follow along by accessing the course. I'm putting it into the chat. It's also in the slide deck. And let's just follow along. So in this microlearning example, we will learn what learning acceleration is. And let's go ahead and start. So what is learning acceleration? After a year of struggling with distance learning and hybrid models, parents, teachers, and policymakers across the country are concerned about learning loss and how to recover from the educational effects of the pandemic. So here is a true-false question. Learning that has been delayed can be recouped through deliberate intervention. True or false? And you're welcome to just say aloud, or please enter it in the chat and I will put in what the consensus is. Great. Yes, true. Let's see. Absolutely. Yes, with support, students may accelerate their learning in order to learn new grade level material. So let's keep going. So this is the typical learning, and this was learning during COVID. So this is the learning loss that we are concerned about. And the research shows that there's a learning lag of approximately 2.6 months in English language arts and 2.5 months in math. Unfortunately, students who are economically disadvantaged, English learners, and Latinx students experience greater learning lags than students who are not in these groups. The good news, though, is that this can be recouped through deliberate intervention. To do that, we need to make a shift. We need to make a shift from remediation to acceleration. So what is that? We have to focus away from learning loss. A lot of the research shows that when we focus on remediation, students never achieve grade level content. They're always focused on the content that came before in the past. They're stuck there. So we have to do something different. The emerging research suggests that when students are provided a pathway to access the grade level content right then and there, that's the clearest path to success and strong outcomes. Learning acceleration is the strategies and supports necessary to make this acceleration to grade level standards, to grade level content possible. And there is a video, an infographic video that explains a little bit more about what learning acceleration is, and you're welcome to view that on your own, but let's move on. So learning acceleration strategies are evidence-based approaches to enable students to make strong and rapid progress in the mastery of knowledge and skills. Again, acceleration and remediation are used interchangeably, but they represent two vastly different approaches to learning. Acceleration, if I'm just going to highlight some things, are focusing on skills that are just-in-time supports for new upcoming concepts, skills that students can apply immediately. Whereas remediation, it's reteaching skills from the past, skills that are taught in isolation and not necessarily applicable to the current learning. Learning acceleration builds bridges to prior knowledge that the students bring from their backgrounds, from their experiences. And relevance is a key component. We have to look at what's coming up, what is the knowledge, what are the experiences that are relevant to motivate students and to provide pathways to access the learning that's coming. So this is active, it's fast-paced, it's hands-on. It's all about forward movement. It's all about bridging toward the current grade level content. So that's a quick overview of acceleration versus remediation. Now let's do some review here. And once again, you're welcome to say aloud or please put into the chat. Okay, focuses on readying students for new learning. Is that remediation or acceleration? Acceleration, I'm seeing. Okay, let's see. All right, we got that. This can put students further behind, exacerbating opportunity and achievement gaps. Is that remediation or acceleration? Remediation, yes. Building bridges for success now. Acceleration, yes. Strategically preparing students who have experienced learning loss for success. Acceleration. What about filling holes from the past? Remediation, yes. And finally, giving students access to current grade level content. Acceleration, you have it. Whoa, all right. So that is what learning acceleration is. And our project, known as the California Collaborative for Learning Acceleration, will be providing support and resources to make this happen. And how does that happen? We focus on 5 evidence-based strategies. The first strategy is priority standards. We recognize that we have to focus on big ideas, content connections, and learning progressions so that we can pinpoint on the priority standards that students require to access grade level content right now. We are going to use high impact tutoring and small group instruction of priority standards to accelerate learning. We're going to incorporate learning that's designed to anticipate and eliminate barriers so that all students may engage with multiple means of engagement, representation, and engagement, known as universal design for learning. We're going to bring in culturally sustaining pedagogy, which is teaching students to sustain their cultural and linguistic practices while providing access to the dominant culture, so that learning is more relevant, responsive, and accelerated. Finally, we're going to integrate environments and strategies for the social well-being of students so that the whole student, whole child is supported to further accelerate learning. And in this way, we're going to leverage the expertise around learning acceleration across the state to provide resources and supports that can be accessed by every educator. We're going to be providing these resources. We're developing them. And just to summarize, accelerated learning strategies are those designed to meet learning that's happening right now for grade level content. And we're going to be providing 5 evidence-based strategies. And we will be providing resources and supports in English language arts, mathematics, and English language development. These will be coming, and in the meantime, you're welcome to find resources at the Inclusion Collaborative and the Santa Clara County Office of Education. Thanks for joining us for this micro-learning example.
What a wonderful simulation, Sung. Thank you so much for guiding us through what it would look like from the teacher's side and the teacher's perspective and going through this system. Thank you so much. I think it's time for a quick break before we have so many wonderful updates. So you can't leave, you have to come back, and feel free to use these next 5 minutes. I'm going to put up our conference flyer back up on the screen. Take some time and register to come in person or attend virtually. We will meet back at 11:17. See you at 11:17. Don't forget to register for our conference. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome back. Hope you're all back and had a nice break and had a chance to register for our conference. Okay, that's the last time I'll say it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a wonderful conference. Welcome back. Welcome back. We have a few more updates we'd like to share with you, and then we'd love for you to share out, of course, as well. And then the most important part is getting your feedback and your input on how we can better our services and continue our services. So I'm going to actually go next and share a little bit about our professional development and coaching. Let me share my screen again here. Okay, professional development and coaching. So our professional development and coaching contracts have really grown. It's very, very exciting. We have noticed a real increase in requested training topics for specifically for welcoming and belonging, UDL, Universal Design for Learning, co-teaching, and of course the teaching pyramid. I want to pass it over to Julie, our Senior Inclusion Services Specialist, and she'll share some numbers and some data that stands out. Julie?
Thank you, Sandra. Real quickly, just the numbers we have here in the first couple of bullets. So far this year, we have 15 professional development and coaching agreements in place. And last year at the same time, there were only 10. So while these aren't huge numbers, it's just indicative of an increase in activity for this year. We could tell overall that we think the schools were and the LEAs were much closer to pre-pandemic levels of requiring and asking for staff PD for inclusive practices. So that's a good sign. We've also had some out-of-county requests. So a couple that are closer to home, San Mateo County and Dublin County, but we've also been involved with Lemoore Union School District, which is out in Kings County, about 3 hours away from here. So nice to see that there's out-of-county interest as well.
Thank you, Julie. Our internal IC partnerships continue and grow. We provide support, coaching, and training on inclusive practices from early learning settings to high school alternative ed settings. And here's just a quick glance at some of our internal partnerships. We value and cherish these relationships. And then, of course, our external partnerships with First Five and Quality Matters, a strong start for kids initiative include communities of practice, teaching pyramid, coaching, and other trainings. An exciting update is that the Inclusion Collaborative will be facilitating communities of practice for mentors who are part of the Family Child Care Apprenticeship Program. We'll also be utilizing the inclusive classroom profile, or actually, I'm sorry, utilizing the inclusive classroom profile. We were able to endorse 5 providers this year to becoming inclusion ICP or inclusive classrooms. Through CAST, we provide our UDL trainings and support and our PD for Universal Design for Learning. We are in sustainability with embedded instruction through the CDE. Embedded instruction is based on a recommended instructional practice for preschoolers with or at risk for learning challenges. And I'm not going to go through each of these, but with SVCF, we mentioned earlier our enhancement that we're creating and designing for the Waste Equity Playbook for early learners or early learning educators. And SVCF has been a big part of that. They have funded this program and they have funded this project, and we are very fortunate to have that additional funding. And now I would like to have you experience a UDL experience with our CECL coordinator or CAS coordinator, Katie White. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, and I'm going to give you share rights so that you can take over.
All right. Thank you, friends. It's great to see you. Let me wait for my share rights to come through.
There it is.
Hey, thank you, friend.
Do you want me to share the screen though? Can you share your own screen?
It's not allowed. Oh, yes, it is now. Woohoo! Okay. All right, here we go. So friends, thank you so much. I just wanted to engage in one quick activity with us all around universal design, as that is what I get to focus on mostly. And one of the real main tenets of UDL that I think hits the soul of everyone who is in this room is the idea that we need to shift mindsets to be able to recognize that it's not the student's fault if they're not currently achieving, that we as educators have many ways that we can shift our practice to allow for more options within our design for learning for our students, thereby helping them to be able to refine their own expert learner skills and ways of learning so they can understand how and where they learn best so that they can advocate for what they need and achieve. So therefore, the barrier is never in the learner, but the barrier is always in the design. And that could be the design of the system itself. It could be the curricular materials. It could be the instructional materials. It could be the methodology that we're using at the time. So I always love this image. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower, says Alexander Den Heijer. You can see on the left, there's an image of a plant that is wilted. And for me, I'm a serious gardener, but basil, this is my basil. My basil is the bane of my existence. I cannot get basil to do anything but exactly that. I don't blame basil. It's not your fault, basil. There's something with me and you, basil. I don't know how to care for you properly, but I am still iterating and trying. On the right, you'll see an image of a gorgeous sunflower that is popping through a very arid climate, desert-like conditions. And the idea here is that, yeah, sometimes a learner will be able to thrive in very difficult situations and environments, but most learners need us to reconsider the environment that they're learning in and redesign for them to be able to achieve. So we're going to dive into one quick activity. So we are trying to work with our educators that we get to coach around this mindset. A statement that you may have said, I know I said this. When I had a classroom, I definitely said this sentence, okay? This group of students can't read. I said that my first couple of years teaching. And we're trying to switch it from the students being of the blame here. They are not the barrier to what is it within the design that is the barrier. So removing the student, we may say that the text complexity of the reading materials could be the barrier to learning the content. Thereby, it's not the student that can't read the materials, it's the materials that are unreadable. One more example. These students can't write. I was guilty, I said that before too. But potentially we could shift our mindset to writing to show you understanding could present a barrier. There are many other ways that our students can show us what they know. They can talk to us, they can whisper it to us, they can draw it for us, and they could even dance it out. So we're going to try one together. All right, friends, I'm going to ask you to throw in the chat any thoughts that you have. What if I told you that Mrs. Johnson thinks that some kids just aren't motivated to learn? How might we redesign this statement? Throw some ideas in the chat, or another option is that you could turn on your microphone and just speak it out. Mrs. Johnson is the human. She's not to blame. How could we switch our mindset around this statement to be able to be in control of making a change? The material isn't engaging to the children. Fabulous. These lessons are not engaging to the children. The environment is not engaging for you get the idea. Oh yes, the classroom activities are not motivating enough. The curriculum is not connected to the student's experience. Oh, what a fun room to work with. This is exciting. So we're going to actually dive one bit deeper. You have options, and I will explain that in a moment. I'm going to ask you to work on one statement of your own. You will be able to work independently by staying in this main room, or you can go to a small breakout room with a small group, or you can go with a partner. And you can choose which statement you want to work on. There are statements 1 through 5 here. Statement 1 says, Eliana doesn't have strong enough English skills to do well on today's activity. You could also redesign statement 2. If Maria could decode better, she would thrive in science class. Or statement 3, Eleanor can't pay attention in class when directions are given. Or statement 4, Alex's home life is terrible, so he really isn't in the state of mind he needs to be in when he gets to school. Or statement 5, Mr. David never wants to take on any new committees at school. We're going to ask you to choose one of these statements that piques your interest. So go ahead, I'll give you a few seconds to choose. Okay, now I'm going to give you options of how you can try and redesign one of these statements. If you've chosen and you'd like to work alone and you're just going to pop it in the chat, you're going to stay right here in the main room. If you would like to work in a small group, then we're going to open up 10 breakout rooms, and rooms 1 through 5 will be small groups. They will coincide with the statements, and I will put the statements up again. So room 1 will be statement 1, room 2, statement 2, on. Rooms 6 through 10 will be if you'd like to work with a partner, and then you can choose whatever statement you want to work with. So if you end up in room 6 through 10 and there's more than 2 people, then please go to a different room, because we'd like to keep those for partners only. It helps some with their effective filter and ability to be able to feel comfortable. All right, make your choice: independent, small group, partner, choice of statement. And if we can go ahead and open up breakout rooms, Sandia, 1 through 10 would be super helpful. And then you can self-select once those breakout rooms show up.
Okay, let me do this. And we're going to do self-select. Yes, 10 breakout rooms.
You got it. Thank you so much, my friend. Lots of choice.
There it goes.
All right, so stay here. You may turn your video off or your mic off.
How much time do they have, Wyatt?
Let's do 3 minutes.
That's a request to have the statements in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Ellie. All right, please let us know if there might be any questions, and we'll talk to you again in 3 minutes.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to press that I'm closing all rooms. Everyone has 1 more minute to work on your activity.
All right, I think we have everyone back.
All right, fabulous. Everybody is back. I hope you enjoyed that activity. I truly believe that if we can shift mindsets that's the beginning to seeing shifts in practice. So just one quick update around some things that we're doing with our UDL work here. I just wanted to name that our grant for CECL, the California Coalition for Inclusive Literacy, continues on until June 30th. It will sunset of next year. And we are in 6 schools in our county. We have educated with the Intro to UDL series thus far, over 80, actually almost 100 educators through that project, 60 in Santa Clara School District and about 40 in Morgan Hill School District. So we're in 4 elementary schools in Santa Clara and 1 elementary and 1 middle school in Morgan Hill. At the bottom, I did put our link to our website here in case you wanted to dive in and see what our team is up to as far as our statewide resources. We put out webinars on Mondays. Right now, we are in this really powerful accessibility webinar series where we're going from how our state assessments are universally designed and then backwards mapping that into the classroom. What does that mean for us turning on our 73 accessibility tools, 67 of which are universal for all students? And then how do we put that into our instruction throughout the year? Our top tips is just a 1-pager of what it is, top tips. And then we've got a minute series that's designed for schools to have choice. Do you have 10 minutes to discuss this? Maybe you have 20, maybe you have 45. So that I wanted to give you the link to. And then the other link that I have there is for our, move out of my way, bar, there you go, is for our, nope, wrong one, our Rising to Equity Stakeholder Committee. I get to serve on at CAST, where we are redesigning our Universal Design for Learning guidelines to name more of our equitable practices because they are not set in there. And we're also considering changing some of the wording around our expert learners to be more inclusive. All right. Thank you very much, my friends. There's just other updates about conferences that we will be presenting at and have presented at, and then on coalitions around universal design that we participate in up and down the state. Thanks so much for playing along.
Thank you. Thanks, Wyatt. We just love that, your energy. I'm so glad that you were able to present for us today. And this is how she is at every single professional development and training. She has this amount of energy that's just amazing. Okay, we're going to jump over to something super exciting, which is our makerspace. We have opened up, or we are in the works of opening up a new space at the South County Annex in Gilroy. And so I would like to turn it over to our makerspace specialist, training specialist, Jenna Picata. And where are you, Jenna? I'm going to have her share some exciting updates, and then we have one more update after that. We'll do some community share outs, and then we'll have some input. So let me give you host rights. There you go.
Thank you. And I will be quick as possible. I'm just going to give you some updates about the makerspace. I just got approved for money to get some new equipment. And really, makerspace learning to me is all about inclusion, belonging, creativity, and innovation. And I really believe that I was meant to be in this space because I, somewhere along the way in my education, lost my sense of creativity, and I recently found it again. And it was because I was a part of a makerspace. So let me see. Am I sharing? I am sharing my makerspace.
Yes, I see
it. Okay, just checking. So when I stepped into this position, I started thinking about how might we design this experience to really get students and teachers to want to create those experiences for students, to get them making in the classroom. And I love that Wyatt just presented on UDL, because I'm really taking that lens of UDL and infusing it into making it into the makerspace, because it is a place where students can be able to express themselves in a variety of different ways. And then through the National Equity Project, I'm bringing in elements of liberatory design. And I know that our office really is big on the My Name, My Identity initiative. And so that's another initiative that's all about inclusion and belonging, and making that space for students to really be proud of who they are in the classroom. And then a really exciting project that I'm a part of right now is this Future Ready student badging. And so I'm going to be going into, we're piloting a program at the brand new high school in Santa Clara, McDonald High School. And we are going to start implementing these Future Ready digital badges where students will have an opportunity to take a look at how I'm working actually with the group in Makerspace Learning and how that shows these soft skills that are going to make them college and career ready. So that's one exciting opportunity that I have. And then with all of these presentations that we have with UDL and co-teaching, we're finding ways to infuse Makerspace Learning into all of that. And I have this quote. This is from Dr. Christopher Emdin from one of his latest books. Education is not memorization. It's the activation of the imagination and a path towards liberation. His books have seriously changed my life. And I'm so excited that he's going to be one of our keynote speakers at our conference. And I'm going to put this link into the chat because I'm going to invite all of you to engage in a creative activity if you want to. So if you do click on that link right there, it's going to force you to make a copy. But this is something that we're going to be doing. The Makerspace is going to be open during our conference. And I don't know if it's going to let me make a copy because I can't click on it for some reason. Okay, well, let me just go back. I'm just going to hold up this bag because we have these bags for our conference and it just says I thrive on. And it was supposed to. Is the link working for anybody else?
Yes, it just takes a little bit, Jenna, but it just, there's a little bit of a delay, but it does.
There you go. So if you click on it, I would love for you to, if you want to even share it without, you can put it in the chat. Just find an icon that speaks to you, drag it onto the page, and that would be an example of what you can do in the Makerspace during the conference. You can come in and you can press on and customize your bag to show what makes you special and what makes you unique. So if you do this right now and put it in the chat, then we can have an idea of something that you really love. So I just wanted to give you that experience. And then really quickly, let me just go back to this. South County Annex, I am looking to build a student-focused makerspace program over there and really work with all of the programs that are down there: Head Start, Early Learning, OIA, Migrant Ed, Special Education, to bring makerspace experiences to those students and really infuse that maker's mindset that really anything is possible, and infusing those UDL principles, design thinking, and liberatory design. So I know we're running behind. I will just wrap it up right there. And I would love to see your creations if you do make that digital version of our conference bag.
Thank you, Jenna. That's another incentive to come to our conference to make one of those bags. Okay, and our last but not least, very, very important update. I'd like to turn it over to, and I hope, poor thing, Adora Fisher. Let me see if is she still here? There you are, Adora. I'd like to turn things over to Adora Fisher, our Executive Director of Educator Preparation Programs, to give us some information on the Early Educators Teacher Development Grant Program. This is her baby, so I'd like to give her a couple of minutes to share on that. Can I go ahead and share the slide, Adora, or do you have
That
something?
would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is that okay, Adora?
Yes, great. Thank you. So I'm talking about the Early Education Teacher Development Grant, which is not necessarily my baby, but our baby. Several divisions and departments in Santa Clara County Office of Education are working on this grant and different pieces that support the grant. This grant is going to be a part of a larger blending of grants that we are using to create an agency that focuses on UPK, a UPK workforce pathways for teachers. The idea of these pathways is to give potential candidates the opportunity to get credentials in education that would allow them to teach in early childhood education. This grant, along with 3 other grants, which we've already received and been awarded, will be blended together to create this agency. And the agency itself will provide for not only funding, but also provide professional development. It will increase the number of highly qualified teachers to teach in CSPP. It also provides us an opportunity to partner with several different organizations within our communities, such as expanding our partnership with First Five and their programs, also expanding our partnerships with Educare and with several colleges and universities, community colleges and universities, all in the effort to support early childhood education and support candidates interested in entering early childhood education. We are currently creating a consortium of districts, early childhood organizations, colleges, and community colleges to come together and work together to bring our resources together for sustainability around providing a workforce for early childhood education. In addition, our hope is that this agency will also provide an avenue to lift people of color who generally teach in early childhood education out of poverty. So there are 2 prongs here. As we're lifting people from poverty, we're also going to need a steady stream of teachers for early childhood education positions. So this grant will also allow for teaching permits for those interested in maintaining and continuing to teach in early childhood education. In addition, we're beginning to work with Eastside Union High School District to look at a CTE program that will focus on early childhood education, allowing students in high school to get their teaching permits and then teach part-time in early childhood education organizations while they're finishing their high school and college careers. That's it. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sandhya. Any questions?
Feel free to put a little hand up or unmute yourselves if anybody has a question. It's a lot of information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adora. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so now is the time for a community share out. If you'd like to share any updates within your programs, make any announcements, please feel free to put that in the chat or raise your hand and we will call on you to share out your important information. We'll spend the next 5 minutes or so doing this. Lula.
Hi everyone, my name is Lula from First Five Santa Clara County Early Learning Department, and I am excited to share with you all about our Shared Service Alliances project that's going on right now. And Shared Service Alliances is a business support for small businesses like family child care home providers. And of course, family child care home providers are small business owners. And as many of you know that they've been, family child care home providers have been impacted severely by the COVID-19. And they haven't been getting the support needed to keep the doors open. And since pandemic started, I think we lost about 303 family child care home providers have closed their doors. So what is Shared Service Alliance? I like to think of it as teachers in school districts. You know, and at the school district level, the school district takes care of the substitute pool, the health cares, all the business support needed is taken care of by the district. But family child care home providers don't get that support, and that's where Shared Service Alliances comes in. and it's created, co-designed by family child care home providers within Santa Clara County. And it provides services like substitute pool, payroll, tuition, business support, and professional learning, just to name a few. And we have our kickoff meeting next month. So exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lula. Super exciting. Thank you very much. Manny.
Yeah, I just want to announce that my other role with the Eastside Education Foundation will be holding our first live scholarship event on September 28th at San Jose State. We'll be giving out about $30,000 in scholarships to students who are graduating from the Eastside Union High School District, taking advantage of the Spartan Eastside Promise. And Marianne is going to be one of our keynote speakers. So just throwing it out there, everyone's invited.
Thanks, Manny. And that's a great segue into Maria. Go ahead, Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria Dane, Executive Director, Parents Helping Parents. And we've got all these awesome kids that are being served by Santa Clara County Office of Ed that will be adults someday. And we were getting a lot of calls from parents whose children were in their 30s and 40s and were on the couch, and the parents didn't know where they were going to live when the parents passed away, and they didn't know how to help their children make friends and how to help their kids get jobs or day programs. And it is just tough. And what we found was, as a state, we could do more to support our families and our children as they grow into adulthood. So we thankfully got a $200,000 grant from Santa Clara Family Health Plan, and we were able to put together the first ever statewide comprehensive resource that explains in parent-centered language, kind of about the 8th grade level, what the big landscape looks like in terms of transitioning to adulthood. We would love it to be used by teachers and special ed directors, especially your new staff, because it takes a long time to learn this stuff. It goes beyond ITP plans. It includes public benefits. It includes conservatorship and of course financial planning. Like, it's incredibly comprehensive. It is in both, it's actually in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Shortly Vietnamese. Spanish launched 2 days ago and English launched last month. I put the English link in the chat. And in addition to being the website hub, we are doing 100 webinars a year. All of you are invited. All your special ed directors are invited. And so we really want to wrap around those families so that children grow to adulthood and have bright futures. And any questions, or if you'd like me to talk to your teams about it, we would love to make sure this resource is getting out there.
Thanks, Maria. And thank you, Manny, for putting that in the chat. And Maria put a link in the chat. And Lula, if there's anything that you want to share in the chat, please do so if there's a link or a specific date. Doing another scan, and I think we're going to just shift over to, we're almost done, but this is the most important part because we really, really value your input, your expertise. We value your ideas, and we just want to hear from you. And so what we're going to do is, let me just share my screen. We're going to set up, or we have already set up 3 breakout rooms, similar to the way these have been done in the past. We'll have you self-select a breakout room that you're interested in providing input on. And we're really looking at focusing around 3 questions. How can we maintain sustainability as the Inclusion Collaborative? Just based off of what we've presented today, and those are just small pieces, of course. We just spotlighted a couple of 2 or 3 things, 3 or 4 things today. But based on that, how can we maintain our sustainability? How can we widen our community outreach? And what data should we be collecting? How can data support our work? So if you're a data person, you're going to go to the data room. If you're interested in helping us with our community outreach or sharing ideas about community outreach, you'll self-select that breakout room. And then, of course, maintaining stability, stability, that as well. So I'll ask you to go ahead and self-select. You'll have about 8 minutes to share. Sung, if you can self-select data, and Susan, if you don't mind self-selecting community outreach to just help facilitate those conversations, and we'll take some notes. We'll see you all back here in about 8 minutes so I can say goodbye and close things up. So again, those rooms are now open. Please self-select which room you'd like to go to. You can't leave yet. You have to come back and say goodbye to all of us. They're all open, Julie? Yes, they look like they're all open. And it's not above me, or I guess below me, to force you into a room. So if you're hanging out, I might force you into a room. If you need help figuring out which one to go to, let me know. I'd be happy to put you in one.
So is it available now?
Yes. Let me stop
I
sharing.
want to get to 3. I can't find it here.
Who is this? Manny, I'll put you in 3.
All right, I got it.
Okay. And then IC team,
got it.
please feel free also to jump into a room and just listen in if you don't mind.
Could you put me in 2 with Susan?
Yes, Yolanda, put you in community outreach.
Can you please put me in room 2, please?
Yes, Sandra.
Can you put
Thank
me
you.
too, please?
Yes, Hien.
Sandy? Thank you, please.
Okay, I think that's, and so we've just got Kathy left. Hi, Kathy. Did you want to, is there a room that you're interested in? Sustainability, data, or community outreach? And you're on mute. I'm so sorry.
Sustainability.
Thank you, Kathy. I'll put you in there right now.
Thank you.
Okay, and you'll just have to click on that. There should be some, yep, there you go.
Do you want me to join sustainability to be able to take
Oh,
notes
I
in
forgot
there?
about sustainability. I can go into sustainability. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, I can go. Oh my gosh, where is it? Got it.
It's the top one. Yeah, there you go.
I need.
And providers and preschools all really look forward to the conference, and it's great that it's being offered virtually and in person, and just again in terms of extending the reach. So I think having that sort of as something that the state is looking forward to every year is really a success, and will hopefully speaks to sustaining the Inclusion Collaborative.
Thanks, Michael. Lots of plugs for our conference. Thank you.
Did I say it the way you wrote it for me?
I'll just say, I've been on the advisory board for the Inclusion Collaborative since its inception.
Wow.
And I think it has to be a balance between doing the work and following the grants. I mean, I have observed the focus jumping around over these many years, following the money. And that is not by choice. I mean, I understand in order to be sustainable, the Inclusion Collaborative has to find grants and get money to sustain. I mean, Charmaine is great, but she's not able to sustain the whole program. And so I think there just has to be a balance between keeping our focus and staying up to date with what's in. So, because what's in is going to get the money. Yeah. But I think we always have to go back to the focus of the Inclusion Collaborative, which was and still is making sure children with disabilities are included. So I think that's a dance that we have to continue to do.
Excellent point. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yeah, that's kind of, I feel sometimes is the hardest part of my job, because sometimes I just want to go in and we just want to do the work, but there's that very important piece. So thank you for mentioning that. You're absolutely right.
I think it's also important, and I think this is why because, you know, that my background's in special education and I've always been, you know, push for inclusion and everything like that. But what I really think will, in the long term, will really bring that sustainability into peace is in the last few years, that recent broadening of perspective in terms of what inclusion is. Because when we start talking about inclusion, we are talking about, you know, in our conversations earlier in the day, we are talking about diversity, equity, you know, diversity, equity, and equality is really what we're looking at when we talk about inclusion, that it's not, because a lot of times the focus of inclusion has been on students with disabilities, as it should be and has been in the past, but expanding that to include all people, our students, you know, transgender students, our students, you know, our LGBTQ students, students with all kinds of diverse backgrounds. And we're looking at, you know, especially what's going on right now, students from countries where they are now migrating to the United States and come from, you know, have trauma, and all of that needs to be addressed. And that's all part of building that community for diversity, equity, and equality. The equity and inclusiveness, I'm sorry, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusiveness, that is all part of it. And I think that really is what's going to sustain us, is really broadening our view to make sure that we are looking at, you know, our students with disabilities, but then also looking at that bigger picture too, particularly since a lot of our students with disabilities are those students that are from different backgrounds and different cultures. So I think that's really important. And that, I think, is a big part of sustainability.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I think we're closing up our breakout rooms. Any last minute thoughts or ideas in the next 20 seconds? Thank you. Okay. Go back. All right, that's it. Look at us right at 12 o'clock. That's really why I wanted to bring you all back, because I want to tell you how proud I am of myself for keeping us on time, because the IC staff will tell you that I am terrible at keeping us on time, because I love to talk to them about everything and anything. And we just really want to thank you for being here with us today, for sharing your ideas, for listening to what we're doing, and for always supporting the work that we do. Again, I'm new in this role, but I can see that through the support of and the advice of all of the members in this room, we have been able to do some very powerful things. So thank you all so much for a wonderful meeting. Hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you, Inclusion Collaborative, for your wonderful presentations as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.